The designer kitchen that cost more than my first car gleamed under the recessed lighting at 2 in the morning. I sat at the granite island, nursing a beer and wondering when I'd become a stranger in my own house. The irony wasn't lost on me. I owned a commercial cleaning company, spent my days making other people's spaces spotless, but couldn't scrub away the mess my marriage had become. Talia's heels clicked against the hardwood as she walked in, phone pressed to her ear, laughing at something whoever the hell it was had said. She glanced at me like I was a piece of furniture that had been left in the wrong room. "I have to go," she said into the phone, her voice dropping to that fake intimate tone she used to use with me. "Yeah, tomorrow night. Same place." She hung up and opened the stainless steel refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of wine that cost more than most people made in a day. The cork popped with a sound like a gunshot in the silence. "Working late again?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Talia snorted, and took a long sip of wine. "Jordan, I've been thinking about divorce for a long time. I'm tired of you." Just like that. No preamble, no cushioning the blow. 22 years of marriage reduced to a snort and a casual dismissal while she stood there in her $1,000 dress, looking like she'd just commented on the weather. "That's the spirit, babe," I said, taking another pull from my beer. "Don't sugarcoat it or anything." She rolled her eyes, those green eyes that used to light up when I walked into a room, now cold as January in Manhattan. "Don't be dramatic. We both know this hasn't been working for years. I've outgrown this." She gestured around the kitchen, but I knew she meant me. "Outgrown," I repeated, like I'm a pair of shoes that doesn't fit anymore. "Exactly." She didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "I need someone who understands my world, my ambitions, someone who can keep up." I watched her text someone while she talked to me, her husband of over 2 decades, like I was the help. Which, I suppose, is exactly how she saw me now. The blue-collar guy who'd built a successful business from nothing, who'd supported her through design school, who'd bought her this house and that dress and every other damn thing she pointed at. "So what's the plan?" I asked. "You file papers, take half of everything I built, and ride off into the sunset with Prince Charming?" Talia's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Something like that. Don't worry, Jordan. You'll be fine. You're good at cleaning up messes." She walked out, leaving me alone with the hum of the refrigerator and the taste of betrayal in my mouth. I sat there for another hour, thinking about how she'd used the word tired, like our marriage was a job she wanted to quit, like I was a burden she'd been carrying instead of the man who'd loved her since we were kids in Queens. The next 3 days were a masterclass in humiliation. Talia didn't bother hiding her phone calls anymore, didn't make excuses for coming home at midnight smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She moved through our house like she was already gone, packing things into boxes she thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed everything. 25 years in the cleaning business teaches you to see what others miss. The details that tell the real story. Like the receipts I found in her purse for a storage unit I didn't know we had. Like the second phone charger in her car. Like the way she hummed while she got dressed to go out, happier than she'd been in our house for months. On Thursday morning, she was in the kitchen again, this time on a video call with her best friend Renee, both of them laughing about something. I caught enough of the conversation to understand they were planning Talia's new life, like it was a vacation they were booking. "The lawyer says it's pretty straightforward," Talia was saying. "Community property state, 22 years of marriage. I should get half of everything plus spousal support." "What about the business?" Renee asked. "That too. He built it during the marriage, so it's marital property. I'll probably sell my half to him, if he can afford it." They both laughed at that, like the idea of me not being able to buy out my own company was hilarious. That's when something cold and calculating settled in my chest. Not anger. Anger would have been hot and stupid. This was different. This was the feeling I got when I looked at a building that needed cleaning and started planning the most efficient way to tackle every floor, every room, every corner. Some stains require special treatment. I spent the day at the office, but my mind was elsewhere. My company, Wells Commercial Cleaning, had contracts with half the office buildings in the city. We employed 32 people, had a fleet of trucks, and a reputation built on reliability and discretion. I'd started it with a borrowed van and a dream back when Talia believed in me. Now she wanted to take half of it and hand it to some lawyer. Marcus Chen, my operations manager, found me in my office at 6 p.m., staring at the wall where I'd hung our business license. "Boss, you look like someone stole your lunch money," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Marcus had been with me for 8 years, worked his way up from night crew to running day-to-day operations. He was sharp, loyal, and had a talent for reading situations. "Something like that," I said. "Want to talk about it?" I told him. "Not everything, but enough." Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker as I talked. "That's cold, boss, even for a divorce." "Gets worse," I said, pulling out the receipts I'd photographed. "She's been planning this for months. Secret storage unit, separate bank account, the works. She's been moving money around, probably hiding assets." Marcus whistled low. "What are you going to do?" I looked at him for a long moment, then opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder I'd been building for the past 3 days. "I'm going to clean house." Friday afternoon, I was supposed to be at a charity open house that Talia had decorated. Some fundraiser for literacy programs, held in a converted warehouse in Soho. Talia had been working on it for weeks, calling it her breakthrough project that would establish her as more than just another interior designer. I hadn't planned to go, but Marcus suggested we swing by to drop off some supplies Talia had forgotten. "Might be good to show your face," he said. "Support the wife, all that." The irony was thick enough to choke on, but I agreed. Sometimes you learn more by watching than by asking questions. The warehouse had been transformed into something from a magazine spread. Talia had a gift. I'd never denied that. She could take an empty space and make it feel like home, or in this case, like the kind of place where wealthy people felt comfortable writing large checks. I spotted her immediately, holding court near a display of children's artwork. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, her auburn hair swept up to show off the diamond earrings I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. She looked radiant, successful, completely in her element. She also looked like a woman who'd already moved on. Marcus and I were unloading boxes of cleaning supplies. Talia always insisted on having everything spotless before events, when I heard her voice carrying across the space. "Oh, that's so sweet of you to say," she was telling a tall man in an expensive suit. "Honestly, I'm just ready for the next chapter, you know? I've been feeling trapped in my current situation for so long." The man nodded sympathetically. He was handsome in that polished way that screamed money and privilege, silver at his temples, perfect teeth, manicured nails. The kind of man who'd never had dirt under his fingernails or worked a day past 6 p.m. "Well, when you're ready to make that move, I'd love to help you find the perfect place," he said. "I specialize in helping people start fresh." "A realtor, of course." "That's so generous, Derek," Talia said, touching his arm. "I'm actually already seeing someone who understands my world much better than my current situation allows. I'm just waiting to cash out and move forward." The words hit me like a physical blow, not just that she was seeing someone, I'd suspected that, but the casual way she talked about cashing out, like our marriage was a stock option she was ready to exercise. Marcus appeared at my elbow. "Boss, you okay? You look like you want to punch something." "I'm fine," I said through gritted teeth. "Let's finish up and get out of here." But as we loaded the empty boxes back into the truck, Marcus handed me something. "Found this in the parking lot near her car," he said quietly. "Thought you should see it." It was a phone. Not Talia's regular phone, I knew that one well enough, but a cheap burner phone with a cracked screen. The kind of phone someone uses when they don't want calls showing up on their regular bill. I powered it on. No lock screen, which was either careless or arrogant. Probably both. The text messages told the whole story. Months of conversations with someone named Derek. The same Derek from the party, I assumed. Intimate messages, plans to meet, discussions about when the divorce is final, and starting our life together. But it was the photos that really got to me. Pictures of hotel rooms, receipts for expensive dinners, screenshots of apartment listings with messages like, "Can't wait to wake up here with you every morning." The most recent message was from that afternoon. "Can't wait to see you tonight, same room as last week. This time next year we'll be doing this in our own place." I handed the phone to Marcus. "Make copies of everything," I said. "Photos, texts, call logs, everything." "You got it, boss. What else?" I thought about Talia in there, playing the role of the successful, independent woman while planning to take half of everything I'd built to fund her new life with Derek, the realtor. I thought about the storage unit, the hidden accounts, the months of planning she'd put into this. "We're going to do some investigating," I said. "Talia wants to play games? Fine. But she's about to learn that I didn't build this business by being stupid." That night, I sat in my home office, the one room in the house that was still mine, and made a list. Not a to-do list, but an inventory. Every asset, every account, every piece of property we owned together. Then, I made another list. Everything I'd owned before the marriage. Everything I'd inherited from my parents. Every business asset that predated our wedding. The picture that emerged was interesting. Very interesting. See, Talia had always been bad with details. She was creative, visual, big picture oriented. She left the boring stuff, taxes, insurance, legal documents, to me, which meant she'd never actually read most of the papers she'd signed over the years, like the post-nuptial agreement we'd signed 5 years ago when I incorporated the business. My lawyer had insisted on it, said it would protect the company if anything happened to our marriage. Talia had signed it without reading it, more interested in planning a vacation to Italy with the money we'd save on taxes. The agreement was very specific about what constituted marital property and what didn't. It also had some interesting clauses about infidelity and financial deception. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. "David, it's Jordan Wells. I need to see you first thing Monday morning. It's about my marriage." "I'm sorry to hear that, Jordan. Divorce?" "Oh, yes. But I think you're going to find this one interesting." Saturday morning, Talia slept until noon, then spent 2 hours getting ready for what she claimed was a girls' day with Renee. She left the house humming, actually humming like she was heading off to Disney World instead of probably meeting her boyfriend. I used the time productively. The storage unit address from the receipt led me to a facility in Queens, the kind of place people use when they're hiding things. I couldn't get inside. I wasn't on the rental agreement, but I could see through the security office window that Unit 247 was rented to Talia Wells, paid through the end of the year. Next stop was the bank where she'd opened her secret account. I couldn't access the account, but I could confirm it existed and get documentation of when it was opened. 3 months ago, right around the time the text messages with Derek started getting serious. The pattern was clear. Talia had been planning this divorce for months, systematically hiding assets and building a nest egg for her new life. In New York, that kind of behavior could be considered financial fraud in a divorce proceeding. She was so focused on taking half of what I'd built that she'd forgotten to cover her tracks. Sunday evening, she came home late again, makeup slightly smudged, that satisfied smile on her face that used to be reserved for me. She found me in the kitchen, reading the newspaper like it was any other night. "Good weekend?" I asked, without looking up. "Wonderful," she said. "Renee and I had such a good time catching up. We're thinking of taking a trip together soon. Maybe Europe. Sounds expensive. Don't worry about it. I'll have plenty of money soon." That's when I knew it was time. Monday morning, Talia left for her studio like always, kissing my cheek with the same casual affection she might show a brother. "Have a good day, honey," she said, like she hadn't spent the weekend planning our divorce. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then made my move. First stop, David Morrison's law office. David had been my attorney since I started the business, a sharp guy who specialized in small business law and had seen enough divorces to know all the tricks. "Jordan," he said, settling behind his desk with the coffee his assistant had brought. "Tell me what's going on." I laid it all out. The affair, the secret accounts, the storage unit, the burner phone. David took notes, his expression growing more interested as I talked. "You have documentation for all of this?" "Everything." I handed him a thick folder. Photos, bank records, text messages, receipts. She's been planning this for months. David flipped through the documents, occasionally whistling under his breath. "This is good work, Jordan. Very thorough. And you're sure about the postnup?" "Positive. You drafted it yourself." He pulled out a file and reviewed the agreement we'd signed 5 years ago. As he read, a slow smile spread across his face. "Oh, this is beautiful. She really didn't read this, did she?" "Not a word. She was too busy planning our trip to Rome." "Well, that trip might have saved you a fortune. Look at section 12. I read where he was pointing. The language was dense legalese, but the meaning was clear. If either party engaged in adultery or financial deception, they forfeited any claim to marital property acquired during the marriage. So if I can prove the affair and the hidden assets, she gets nothing. Personal belongings only. The house, the business, the retirement accounts, all yours. How fast can we move on this?" David checked his calendar. "I can have papers drawn up by this afternoon. With this level of documentation, we can file immediately. She'll be served tomorrow." "No, I want to serve her myself." David raised an eyebrow. "That's not usually how it works, Jordan." "Make it work. I want to see her face." The rest of Monday was spent in preparation. I moved money from our joint accounts into business accounts, secured all the company assets, and had David file the necessary paperwork to protect my interests. Everything I did was legal, documented, and designed to ensure that when the dust settled, I'd still have a business to run. Tuesday morning, I called in sick to work, first time in 3 years, and spent the day arranging the kitchen table like I was setting up for a business presentation. Every document was organized, labeled, and laid out in perfect rows. Divorce papers, financial statements, copies of the post-nuptial agreement, and printed copies of every text message and photo from the burner phone. At the center of it all, I placed a single red rose in a vase. A nice touch, I thought. Talia came home at her usual time, chattering about a new client as she walked through the door. She stopped when she saw the table. "What's all this?" she asked, her voice suddenly careful. "Have a seat," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. "We need to talk." She remained standing, her designer purse clutched in her hands like a shield. "Jordan, if this is about the other night, I can explain." "Sit down, Talia." Something in my voice must have convinced her. She sat, her eyes scanning the documents spread across the table. "I've been thinking about what you said," I began. "About being tired of me, about wanting a divorce, about how you've outgrown our marriage." "Jordan, I'm talking." My voice was calm, level, the same tone I used with difficult clients. "You're right. We both deserve to be happy, so I've made it easy for you." I slid the divorce papers across the table. "These were filed this morning. You've been served." Talia's face went through several emotions: surprise, anger, and then something that looked almost like relief. "Well, I have to say, I didn't expect you to make this so simple." "Oh, it gets simpler. Keep reading." She picked up the papers, scanning them quickly. I watched her face change as she read the terms. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something approaching panic. This says I get nothing. Nothing except my personal belongings. That can't be right. Keep reading. Page 3 explains it all. She flipped pages frantically. Adultery clause? Financial deception? Jordan, what are you talking about? I gestured to the photos spread across the table. Recognize these? The hotel room on East 64th Street? The restaurant where you and Derek celebrated your 3-month anniversary? The apartment listings you've been sending each other? Talia's face went white. Where did you get these? You dropped your phone in the parking lot at the charity event. Careless. I leaned back in my chair. The storage unit was a nice touch, by the way, very thorough, except you used your real name on the rental agreement. She was staring at the photos now, her hands shaking slightly. You can't prove anything. These could be fake. Could be, but they're not. I slid another document across the table. Bank records for your secret account. Opened 3 months ago, same day you first texted Derek about leaving me. Funded with money transferred from our joint savings account. Jordan, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've been planning this divorce for months, hiding assets, conducting an affair, and lying to my face every single day. I kept my voice conversational, like we were discussing weekend plans. The post-nuptial agreement you signed 5 years ago is very clear about what happens in cases like this. Talia finally found her voice, and when she did, it came out as a scream. How dare you? How dare you spy on me, investigate me like I'm some kind of criminal? You are a criminal. Hiding marital assets is fraud, Talia. I could have you arrested. This is insane. You can't do this to me. Actually, I can. And I have. I stood up, straightening my tie. Your things are packed. They're in the garage. Derek's welcome to help you move them. She lunged across the table, scattering papers. You bastard! You can't throw me out of my own house! It's not your house. Check the deed. It's in my name only, purchased with my business assets before we signed the postnup. I caught her wrists gently but firmly. Talia, it's over. You wanted out, and now you're out. Clean and simple. She jerked away from me, backing toward the door. My lawyer will destroy you. I'll take everything you have. Your lawyer will read the same documents you just read and advise you to settle quickly and quietly. Unless you want Derek's wife to know about your relationship. That stopped her cold. Derek's not married. I smiled for the first time in days. Derek Vaughn, Vaughn Properties, married to Jennifer Vaughn for 12 years, 2 kids in private school on the Upper East Side. Did he forget to mention that? The look on her face was almost worth the last 3 months of humiliation. Almost. You're lying. Google him, or better yet, call Jennifer. I'm sure she'd love to hear about Derek's afternoon activities. Talia stood there for a long moment, everything she'd planned crumbling around her. When she finally spoke, her voice was small, defeated. What do you want? Nothing. You already gave me everything I need. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a set of keys. Your car keys. The BMW is in my name too. Business expense. There's a cab waiting outside. She took the keys with shaking hands. Jordan, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. You underestimated me. I opened the front door. Goodbye, Talia. She walked out into the evening air, her heels clicking on the sidewalk like a countdown timer. I watched until the cab pulled away, then closed the door and locked it. The house felt different immediately. Cleaner somehow, like I'd finally gotten rid of a stain I'd been scrubbing at for months. I poured myself a beer and sat back down at the kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of my wife's betrayal and my own methodical response to it. Tomorrow, I'd have to deal with lawyers and paperwork and the messy business of untangling 22 years of marriage. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe in my own house. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. David had been right. Talia's lawyer took one look at the evidence and advised her to accept the settlement. There was no point in fighting a battle she couldn't win. But Talia, I learned, was not going quietly. Marcus found me in my office on a Thursday morning, holding a stack of printouts and wearing the expression he got when he had bad news to deliver. "Boss, we got a problem." "What kind of problem?" He dropped the papers on my desk. "Talia's been busy. Check out what she's been posting on social media." I scanned the printouts, screenshots of Facebook posts, Instagram stories, Twitter rants. All of them painted the same picture. Jordan Wells, successful business owner, had thrown his wife out on the street with nothing. Jordan Wells was a controlling, abusive husband who'd hidden assets and manipulated legal documents to steal everything from his innocent wife. "Gets worse," Marcus said. "She's been calling our clients." That got my attention. "Which clients?" "Started with the Morrison building, where she used to have her studio. Told them you were under investigation for domestic abuse, that they should consider finding a new cleaning company before the scandal broke." I felt my jaw clench. Going after me personally was one thing, but threatening my business crossed a line I hadn't expected her to cross. "How many clients?" "6 so far that we know of. Morrison, the Hartwell Complex, that new office building in Midtown. She's been telling them all the same story, that you're dangerous, that she's afraid for her safety, that they should distance themselves from you before it affects their reputation." I leaned back in my chair, thinking. In the cleaning business, reputation was everything. Corporate clients were cautious about scandals, even false ones. If Talia managed to plant enough doubt, it could seriously damage my company. "Any clients actually cancel?" "Not yet. But Morrison's property manager called this morning asking questions. Wanted to know if there was anything they should be concerned about." I stood up, straightening my tie. "Set up a meeting with Morrison for this afternoon. And get me a list of every client Talia's contacted. It's time to get ahead of this." The meeting with Morrison went better than expected. I brought documentation, the divorce papers, the evidence of Talia's affair, copies of her social media posts. I explained the situation calmly, professionally, like I was presenting a cleaning proposal. "I understand your concern," I told Jim Morrison, the building's property manager. "Nobody wants to do business with someone who has personal problems that might affect their work. But I think you'll agree that the evidence speaks for itself." Morrison reviewed the documents, his expression growing more sympathetic as he read. "Jesus, Jordan. She really did a number on you, didn't she?" "She tried, but I've been in business too long to let personal problems affect my work. My company has cleaned your building for 8 years without a single complaint. That's not going to change because my ex-wife is embarrassed about getting caught cheating." "What about these abuse allegations?" I handed him another document. "Police report from last week. Talia filed a complaint claiming I threatened her. The investigating officer found no evidence to support her claims and recommended no charges be filed. That was true as far as it went. Detective Sarah Martinez had been thorough, professional, and ultimately dismissive of Talia's claims. When someone files an abuse report but can't provide any evidence, no witnesses, no injuries, no threatening messages, and the accused has documentation proving the accuser is lying about other things, it's not hard to determine credibility." "Look, Jim," I said, "I know this is awkward. If you want to terminate our contract, I understand. But I'd appreciate the chance to prove that this won't affect the quality of our work." Morrison handed the papers back to me. "Jordan, you've been nothing but professional in all our dealings. Your work is excellent, your prices are fair, and your people are reliable. I'm not going to let someone else's drama affect a good business relationship." "I appreciate that. But I will say this, you need to shut this down fast. If she keeps calling my tenants, it's going to become a problem for both of us." He was right. Talia was escalating, and I needed to respond before she did real damage to my business. That evening, I drove to Derek Vaughn's office. Vaughn Properties occupied a sleek space in a midtown high-rise, all glass and steel and expensive furniture designed to impress wealthy clients. Derek's corner office had a view of Central Park and probably cost more to furnish than most people made in a year. Derek was alone, working late, when I knocked on his open door. "Mr. Vaughn? I'm Jordan Wells. I think we need to talk." He looked up from his computer, and I watched recognition dawn on his face. To his credit, he didn't try to pretend he didn't know who I was. "Mr. Wells, I suppose this was inevitable. May I come in?" He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please." I sat down, taking a moment to study him. Up close, Derek Vaughn was exactly what I'd expected. Handsome, polished, expensive. The kind of man who'd never had to fight for anything in his life. "Nice office," I said. "Thank you. I assume you're not here to discuss real estate." "Not exactly. I'm here to discuss my wife, ex-wife, actually, as of yesterday." Derek shifted in his chair. "Look, Mr. Wells, I know this is awkward." "It's not awkward, Derek. It's business." I leaned forward slightly. "See, Talia's been making some phone calls, spreading stories about me that aren't true. It's starting to affect my company. I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't see how that involves me. It involves you because you're the reason she's doing it. She's angry that the divorce didn't go the way she planned, and she's taking it out on my business." I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot. "This is from her Instagram yesterday. The man who destroyed my life is still out there, hurting other people. Someone needs to stop him before he ruins more lives." Derek read the post, his expression growing uncomfortable. "I told her to stop posting things like that." "Did you? That's interesting, because this morning she posted about how certain people in the real estate industry were helping her expose the truth. Kind of sounds like she thinks you're supporting her campaign." "I'm not supporting anything. I told her the divorce was between you and her, and I wanted to stay out of it." I studied his face. "But you're still seeing her." Derek was quiet for a long moment. "That's complicated." "Is it? Because from where I sit, it looks pretty simple. You started an affair with a married woman, helped her plan to leave her husband, and now you're dealing with the consequences." "Mr. Wells, I understand you're angry." "I'm not angry, Derek. I'm practical." I stood up, straightening my jacket. "Talia's campaign against me stops now. Tonight. Or it becomes your problem too." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining a situation. Talia's been telling people that her affair partner is going to help her rebuild her life and get justice. If she keeps attacking my business, I'll have to defend myself. And that defense will include documentation of your relationship, including dates, locations, and expenses. I imagine your wife would find that information very interesting." Derek's face went pale. "You can't prove anything." I pulled out a folder and placed it on his desk. "Hotel receipts with both your names, restaurant charges on your corporate credit card during times you claimed to be in business meetings, text messages discussing your relationship, security camera footage from your building showing Talia visiting your office after hours." He opened the folder, his hands shaking slightly as he reviewed the contents. "How did you get all this?" "I'm in the cleaning business, Derek. I'm very good at finding things that other people want to hide." I sat back down. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Talia tonight and explain that your relationship is over. You're going to tell her that if she continues her campaign against me, you'll publicly distance yourself from her and her claims. And if I don't? Then tomorrow morning, I'll be having a very similar conversation with your wife, except I'll be giving her copies of everything in that folder, along with contact information for a very good divorce attorney." Derek closed the folder, his expensive composure finally cracking. "This is blackmail. This is consequences. You chose to have an affair with a married woman. She chose to try to destroy my business out of spite. Now you both get to choose how this ends." I stood up again, heading for the door. "Oh, and Derek, Talia's been telling people you're going to marry her once her divorce is final. You might want to clarify that situation too. False hope makes people do desperate things." I left him sitting in his expensive office, staring at the evidence of his own poor choices. By the time I got home, my phone was already ringing. "Jordan?" Talia's voice was shaky, desperate. "We need to talk." "No, we don't. We're divorced, remember? You got what you wanted." "Derek says you threatened him. You can't do this to me." "I can do exactly this to you. I tried to let you leave quietly, with some dignity and tact. You chose to make it ugly." "I'll stop the posts. I'll stop calling your clients. Just leave Derek alone." "Too late for that, Talia. You should have thought about consequences before you started your campaign." "Please, Jordan, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, but this isn't the way. This is exactly the way. You wanted to play games, and now you're losing. Deal with it." I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding my reputation and my business. Tonight, I was going to enjoy the silence in my clean, peaceful house. Some stains, I reflected, require more aggressive treatment than others. 3 months later, my life had settled into a new rhythm. The divorce was finalized, the business was stable, and Talia had disappeared from my daily concerns like a bad smell that had finally been scrubbed away. Until Marcus walked into my office on a rainy Tuesday morning with a grim expression and a newspaper in his hand. "Boss, you need to see this." The headline in the business section made my coffee taste like ash. "Local businessman faces fraud investigation following ex-wife's allegations." I read the article twice, my anger building with each paragraph. According to the reporter, Talia had provided evidence that I'd been operating a money laundering scheme through my cleaning business, using cash payments from clients to hide income and avoid taxes. She claimed I'd threatened her when she discovered the illegal activity and that her divorce attorney had found irregularities in my financial records. Every word was a lie, but it was written in that careful journalistic style that made it sound credible. The reporter had even contacted some of my clients for comment, though most had declined to speak on the record. "How bad is this?" I asked Marcus. "Bad. My phone's been ringing all morning. 3 clients want to meet this week to discuss the situation. Morrison called to say his board is concerned about the negative publicity." I set the paper down and reached for my phone. "Get me David Morrison on the line, then call Detective Martinez. She investigated Talia's abuse claims. She'll remember the case. And set up a meeting with our accountant for this afternoon." "What are you thinking, boss?" "I'm thinking Talia just made the biggest mistake of her life." The next few hours were a whirlwind of phone calls and meetings. My accountant confirmed what I already knew. My books were clean, every transaction documented, every tax payment current. Detective Martinez remembered Talia's false abuse allegations and was interested to hear she was making new false claims. And David Morrison, despite his board's concerns, agreed to give me a week to clear up the situation before making any decisions about our contract. But the damage was already spreading. By afternoon, 2 more clients had called with concerns, and I could see the doubt in my employees' eyes. In the cleaning business, trust was everything, and Talia had just poisoned the well. That evening, I sat in my home office, surrounded by financial records and legal documents, planning my response. I could fight this the conventional way, hire a public relations firm, issue statements, wait for the truth to come out, but that could take months, and by then my business might be destroyed. Or I could handle it the way I'd handled everything else in this mess, by being smarter, more thorough, and more ruthless than my opponents expected. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. "How do you feel about doing some detective work?" "What kind of detective work?" "The kind that finds out who's really behind this story. Talia's not smart enough to orchestrate something like this alone. Someone's helping her, and I want to know who." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "You thinking Derek?" "Derek's too worried about his own reputation to risk this kind of exposure. But Talia's been staying somewhere, getting money from someone. Divorced women don't usually have the resources to hire private investigators and feed stories to reporters. I'll make some calls. Give me 24 hours." While Marcus worked his contacts, I focused on damage control. I called every client personally, explaining the situation and providing documentation of my company's legitimate operations. I contacted my insurance company about coverage for false allegations, and I started building a file of evidence that would destroy Talia's credibility once and for all. The breakthrough came Wednesday evening. Marcus walked into my office with a satisfied grin and a folder full of papers. "Found your puppet master, boss, and you're not going to believe who it is." He spread the documents across my desk: bank records, phone bills, rental agreements, and surveillance photos that must have cost him serious money to obtain. "Renee Patterson," he said, "Talia's best friend and business partner. Turns out she's been bankrolling Talia's whole revenge campaign." I studied the evidence. Renee had been paying for Talia's apartment, funding her legal fees, and even hiring the private investigator who dug up the evidence for the newspaper story. Why would she do all this? Marcus pointed to another document. "Because you cost her money. Remember that charity event where you first saw Talia with Derek? Renee was supposed to get half the credit for that job. When Talia's reputation got destroyed by the divorce scandal, Renee lost a major client and 2 potential contracts. So this is about business. It's about money. Renee figured if she could destroy your reputation, Talia could sue you for damages and they could split the settlement." I leaned back in my chair, pieces clicking into place. That's why the newspaper story focused on fraud instead of personal issues. They're trying to build a case for financial damages. Exactly. But here's the beautiful part. Renee's been paying for everything with money from her business account. Business account that's registered as a partnership with Talia. They've been using company funds to finance a personal vendetta. That's embezzlement. That's exactly what it is, and I've got documentation going back 3 months. I smiled for the first time in days. "Marcus, you beautiful bastard. This is exactly what we need." Thursday morning, I walked into the offices of the newspaper that had run the story about me. I asked to speak with the reporter who'd written the article, a young woman named Sarah Chen, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else when I introduced myself. "Mr. Wells, I should mention that I can't reveal my sources." "I'm not here about your sources," I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "I'm here to give you a follow-up story, one that's going to be much more interesting than the original." I handed her a folder containing Marcus's evidence about Renee and Talia's scheme. "Your original story was based on false allegations made by a woman who's been embezzling money from her business partner to finance a personal revenge campaign against her ex-husband." Sarah opened the folder, her eyes widening as she reviewed the documents. "Where did you get all this?" "I'm in the cleaning business, Ms. Chen. I'm very good at finding dirt." I leaned forward. "Now, you can either write a retraction based on the facts, or you can wait for the police to arrest your sources for embezzlement and fraud. Either way, the truth is coming out. I'll need to verify this information." "Of course. Detective Martinez at the 14th Precinct is expecting your call. She's been investigating Talia Wells for making false statements for months." I stood up, straightening my tie. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide how you want to handle this. After that, I'm taking this story to your competition." Friday's newspaper carried a very different headline: "Business Partners Charged with Embezzlement in False Allegation Scheme." The article was everything I could have hoped for. It detailed how Renee Patterson and Talia Wells had used business funds to finance a campaign of false allegations against Talia's ex-husband. It included quotes from Detective Martinez about Talia's history of making false statements, and it mentioned that both women were facing charges for embezzlement and filing false police reports. My phone started ringing before I finished reading the article, clients calling to apologize for doubting me, employees expressing relief that the nightmare was over. Even a few new potential clients who'd been impressed by how professionally I'd handled the crisis. But the call that mattered most came that afternoon. "Jordan? It's Talia." Her voice was small, defeated. "Can we please talk?" "I don't think we have anything to discuss." Please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But Renee said this would work, that we could get enough money to start over. So you decided to destroy my business based on what Renee said? The same Renee who's been stealing from your company? I didn't know about the embezzlement. I swear I didn't know. But you knew the allegations were false. You knew I'd never done anything illegal. You just didn't care. Talia was crying now. I was angry. I felt like you'd stolen my life from me, taken everything I'd worked for. I wanted you to hurt the way I was hurting. Well, congratulations. Mission accomplished. What's going to happen to me? I looked out my office window at the city I'd worked so hard to build a reputation in, the city where my business was now stronger than ever because I'd proven I could handle a crisis with integrity. That's not my problem anymore, Talia. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. I hung up and turned to Marcus, who'd been listening from the doorway. Think that's the end of it, boss? That's the end of it. Talia and Renee will probably get probation and community service. First offense, no prior record. But their reputations are finished. No one's going to hire them after this. And Derek? I smiled. Derek's wife filed for divorce last week. Apparently, she'd been suspicious for months and hired her own investigator when the newspaper story came out. She found evidence of 3 other affairs. Marcus whistled. Rough. Choices have consequences. Derek chose to cheat on his wife with a married woman. Talia chose to try to destroy my business out of spite. Renee chose to embezzle money to finance a revenge scheme. I straightened my tie and picked up my briefcase. I chose to fight back with the truth. Guess which choice worked out better? That evening, I sat in my clean, quiet house, reading the newspaper coverage of Talia and Renee's arrest.